Welcome back to Speak Out, Stand Out. I'm Elizabeth Green, and today's guest is Katie Kimball. Katie is the founder of Raising Healthy Families, focusing on building healthy relationships with food and life skills in general. She's also a former teacher, a two-time TEDx speaker, a writer, a mom of 4 kids, and a creator of several online courses. She's got her hands in all the things. And Katie, I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. Thanks for being here today.
Oh, thank you. This is, a topic near and dear to my heart for sure.
Well, you obviously you do have lots of different facets of what you do, but the overall focus is on raising healthy, resilient, happy, kind kids, right? How did you get to this point in life where this is your focus? I mean, you were a teacher, you're a writer, you've done lots of things. Why is this your thing?
Yeah, I was that parent when my first was born because being a teacher and I had all the little Montessori, activities around the house. And then when I had baby number two, she started eating all the beans from the Montessori activities. And I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do to balance a toddler and a preschooler. I was not taught that at university, going to be a teacher. And so it felt like I got knocked off my horse a little bit at that point, like in some of my like big goals, teaching my kids and like,
Yeah.
just kind of doing it all right. But then when my oldest hit 10, and there was like this sense that I was halfway through parenting him. And we had this experience where he had to do a how-to speech at school and he decided to do food, which is great. At that point, I was a food blogger and I was like, oh, you could show them how to make something. And he used a chef's knife, so I got to be there because fourth graders can't take knives to school in their backpacks. It's,
Right.
kind of a thing. And it was so great watching him wield this chef's knife, and the few other adults in the room were kind of like, when he thwacked the pit out of the avocado because he was making guacamole. And I had a moment where internally I also went, wait a second. I'm halfway through parenting and guacamole is the only dish he knows how to make. like like I had forgotten to keep going after I taught him one thing. So that was kind of my moment where I thought, okay, my kids need to learn to cook. This is really important. And I spent that summer. I let each of the three who were old enough to learn, because number four was a baby at that point. They invited a friend over, and I went like full on teacher mode. And like, what are the skills that kids would need to know to actually function well in a kitchen, to be able to feed themselves when they leave home? And so that's kind of where the teaching, like kids cooking, grew out of, because I kept hearing from my food blogging audience that it was so hard to eat healthy because they didn't know how to cook. And I thought, gosh, if our generation is uncomfortable in the kitchen, we're certainly not teaching the next generation. And this cycle will continue with people feeling like they're unable to feed themselves whole foods. So that's kind of how I got into really guiding parents in helping with, building these skills in the kitchen. And then we've since expanded to kind of more life skills. And I pull in people, in other niches and finances and entrepreneurship. And it's been amazing to watch the way cooking builds confidence. And that was a surprise to me. I didn't know that would happen.
Yeah, I think first of all, what a cool like mashup of your skills and your interests and hobbies. I think that's so cool how that all came together. But it is one thing though, now you're talking, my kids are 13 and 17, and my 17-year-old used to love to bake. And so he did a lot in the kitchen, but he wanted to bake the sweets and things like that. And they've learned how to cook a little bit, but I'm literally thinking, I don't teach them very much in the kitchen. We focus on so many things. They need to learn math. I teach them public speaking and confidence and things like that. But we just kind of, as moms, I think, tend to do the things in the kitchen
Right.
without and necessarily remembering that this is a skill that they need to learn too. So, and how lucky are your kids' partners going to be when they grow up and move in with somebody, that they're going to have somebody who knows how to cook and cook well.
Well, I have to tell you that 10-year-old from the story is 21 and he's getting married in May.
Oh.
And I've always said, I will raise boys that will be easy for my daughter-in-laws, and I'm like,
Yeah.
no, get a daughter-in-law. And it's such a treasure to watch, he'll cook for her here in our house and make her a big breakfast. And it's just special. It's beautiful.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, and today, and you do have so much that people can watch and courses for kids to take and all that on cooking. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I want to know more about the cooking aspect, there's tons of that out there. But we're going to change the focus a little bit today to more building confidence in our kids and different ways we can do that here at home, which is obviously the goal of Speak Out, Stand Out.
Yeah.
And so what are some ways, especially if we're talking like younger kids, teens and
Sure.
stuff, we can encourage them to run for student council or be the person to volunteer to say the prayer at the scout meeting or things like, there's things that we can
Mhm.
do that are directly related to speaking that build confidence. But there's a lot of other ways we can build confidence
Yeah.
in our kids. So, what are some of your top go tos?
Well, when we think about all that we do as moms and dads to run a household, there are so many skills of adulting that our kids will need. And the beautiful benefit actually of learning how to do household tasks, whether that's cooking or cleaning a toilet or checking the oil in your car, is that it does build confidence. Anytime that you begin a task, see it through, accomplish it effectively, that's like a piece of proof. It's a piece of proof for your brain that you can do something. And when it's something that adults do, I feel like that levels it up a little bit. I always say that if a child or a teen can feed another human being, that's like literally keeping them alive. And
Yeah.
to know that, like I remember kid number 3, he's 14 now, but when he was 7, he said, "Mom, I think I'm ready to learn the chef's knife." He'd been using a paring knife for about 3 years at that point. And I was like, "Whoo, 7, that's that's pretty young." But he felt he was ready. I agreed that he was ready. And one of the phrases that he'll pull out from time to time is, I bet other kids in my grade can't do this."
Oh,
And like
yeah.
that's like confidence just oozing out. What a cool feeling. And
Yeah.
so I think really any skill that you can teach your kid, and then especially if you can give them some ownership, allow them to experiment and fail, because that's going to build resilience too, is in a funny way what we do inside the home absolutely builds confidence for anything else, whether it's public speaking or just, interacting with a new friend, or right, just like raising a hand in class or ordering at a restaurant. All of that comes from confidence, and we have one confidence bucket. So if we can build it in any arena of life, it applies to all the other arenas.
Yeah, that's so cool. I could absolutely see my kids feeling the same way about like I can do this and other kids can't. And I think
Mhm.
back of like being a kid myself. What we wanted more than anything was to be an adult. Now if we could like go back and change those thoughts. But
Right.
we just thought it was so cool to see our parents do adult things.
Mhm.
So all right, so maybe giving them a little bit more. Grown-up tasks in the kitchen, obviously very
Mhm.
observed and teaching them how, right? What are some other things that we can do though that would outside of the kitchen or the knife
Yeah.
example?
I mean, I'm a huge fan of helping kids understand their finances. So every year when we do our Life Skills Now summit, we host an awesome summer camp every year, and we make it free for a week. And there's always a finances track, and it's always super popular because it's it's one of those tasks that's hard for parents, I think, to pass on to their kids because there's so much invisibility to it. Right?
Yeah,
If I pick up my phone and I'm checking my bank balance, or I'm, investing some money, it looks to a child the same as if I'm scrolling Instagram or Facebook. And so
right.
they can't always tell what we're doing, and they can't always see some of the decisions we're making at the grocery store to stay within our budget, or how we choose to give to church. A lot of that has become so digitized that they
Yeah,
don't even see the hand and the cash being
it's true.
exchanged, at the market. And so I think parents are intimidated by that, but that means it's all the more important. And for a child to be able to learn to earn his or her own money, in some sort of like little entrepreneurial venture, whether that's a lemonade stand or selling some toys of theirs on Facebook Marketplace, that makes kids feel so cool to be able to earn their first dollar, and then to figure out how to manage that, and how to save, how to spend, how to give. They're simple yet complex tasks. And I always encourage parents, like, so here's the practical tip, is to do a little bit of that narrating out loud when you're making financial decisions, because kids can't see it.
Hmm.
So we do it when they're toddlers, like, oh, mommy's holding the handrails, so I'm safe on the stairs, right? But we kind of stop doing that when they're older. And especially for parents of middle and high school students, I would say the more you can narrate some of your adult decisions in the areas of finances or other, the better, because that's going to sort of sink in to their consciousness then.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking, like, being at the store, not too long ago, my youngest son asked me, "Why aren't you getting two of those? You get one free," because it was a BOGO deal. And I just had to explain to him, you don't actually have to get both of them at the store. You can get one for half price. And it was just like a little learning experience. But had he not questioned me, I wouldn't have thought to, like you just said, narrate some of the kind of decisions that I'm making. And and those are things that obviously he's going to need to know. They're not going to learn these things in school.
Mhm.
I have to absolutely 1000% agree with you regarding the earning money. My same son, 13, for about 3 years now, he has had a job taking out trash cans for our neighbors.
Oh,
So Monday evening after school, he takes them out. Tuesdays after school, he puts them back after the trash is run. And he has learned how to earn and save money. And he actually bought himself a mini motorcycle, which I never in a million years would have bought for him, but it was really hard to say no when he earned every dime for it, you know? But it's been so interesting to watch him learn, okay, if I want to buy this, how many trash cans or how many weeks or how many months do I have to work to have the money for it? And he has done a tremendous job of learning how to manage money.
right.
And it goes back to the pride thing, like you were talking about. He lights up when you can see him telling people that he has a job. But he used to say, actually, I tell people I have a trash job, but that sounds like I don't have a good job. I should probably change the way I say that.
I love it.
But so absolutely, and 100% agree with these things. Those little things that we're not thinking this is building confidence. It absolutely is.
To have ownership in anything, really. We live in a decently affluent area, and unfortunately, a lot of my kids' peers, their parents pay for everything. They pay for their gas. They Venmo them money, even for gas. And
Yeah.
I just feel like, my kids watch that and they say, what are they going to do when they graduate high school? Like, when does the ownership shift? When does the responsibility shift?
Yeah.
So it's been really interesting to hear, my own teenagers sort of observe the other, and they're not exactly happy that they have to pay for their own gas. And my
Right.
daughter, if she wants to get a fancy haircut, she's gonna have to pay for that herself, or mom can trim it at home. And it's what adult decisions she has to make on how to spend her money. So again,
Yeah.
she's like, she always feels caught in the middle. She's like, I don't love that I have to pay for this, but I do get like I do get that I'm building skills, I guess.
And one of these days, you're going to get the mom, you were so right in making me do that. And
Oh my
one of these
goodness.
days, you're going to get
10
that
years
back.
from now, dear God, please let it happen.
Speaking of that, especially talking about our teens, right? They need to know how to do things around the house. Like you talked about, checking the oil. My son was so excited. My older son felt so excited. He wasn't excited, but I could tell he felt very proud to show his girlfriend how to change a tire when she
Ooh.
busted a tire on the way to her house. But outside of things like that, when it's like I get to show off for somebody that I want to impress, cleaning the toilet or doing the dishes are not necessarily things that they're like excited to show off about. How do we get them to do this without a fight?
Goodness. I mean, there's no way to do it without any complaining. Let's just be realistic here.
I mean, I complain when I have to clean too. So to be fair.
But I mean, it's so important to set your expectations and keep them consistent. So I want to say, like, I'm a messy person visually. I'm a piles person. I act really unorganized, but if I can get a really simple system that works, it makes me feel like an organized person. So, two examples that we use in our house to just help the whole family take responsibility for the household. One is we have after meal chores. And again, we have 4 kids. So the after meal chores are put away the food that's left out, wipe all the surfaces, do the dishes. And then the last one is called the helper. And that's kind of, if someone is gone, they have to step in or whatever. And those rotate every week. So you have your same job for that week. And then the next week it rotates. And the good thing is that dinner happens every day. And so it's easy to remember, like, what are the after meal chores? And yeah, do they love it? No, but it's easy to say, hey, everybody eats, everybody participates. And then each of our kids does also make one meal a week. And so the great thing is, if you make the meal, you don't have to do your after meal chore. So there's a little bit of a balance and incentive. And that's how my husband and I have always worked, even when it was just the two of us. If I cooked, he would clean, and vice versa. And so I think just establishing that this is a family and this is a team, and we're all, we all eat, therefore we all have to help out. I just say that a lot when I come home from a grocery store. I'll be like, I have hunted and gathered. Anyone who eats in the house, get out to the van, let's put the food inside, if you want to eat, let's go. So, keeping it a little light and stuff. For our general weekly household chores that aren't those after meal chores, we've had a system that's worked for over a decade because it's super flexible. And so I have this piece of paper. It's a checklist of all the household tasks that need to be done weekly and monthly. We put it in a sheet protector so we can use, just mark it, check them off every week. And the kids have to get it 20 points per week. Bigger tasks are 3 or 4 points. Smaller tasks are 1 or 2. And the great thing is that the system gives them a little bit of agency because they could do one task per day. A lot of my kids tend to just slam them all onto Saturday morning and get them done, because the checkpoint, again, for me, I don't have to nag all week because it's Sunday after brunch. That's like the stop point that I say, okay, we got to settle up on chores. Do you have them done for the week? If they do, great. They get them checked off and they're free to go. If they don't, there's no recreation of any kind until that's done. So they can't read a book. They can't hop on a video game. They can't call a friend. And so again, what's nice is that they learn to budget their time, and they learn what sort of kind of task personality they have. Do I prefer to do one a day? Do I prefer to put them all on Saturday? Or my 11-year-old, the youngest, he's big at like making plans and then deciding to go play anyway. So he's big on saying, I'm going to do one chore, every morning when I wake up here in the summer, every day after school. And then, oh, well, no, I'll do half on Saturday and then half on Sunday before church. And it's, you can like see his brain growing, because then he'll get frustrated with himself on Sunday that Saturday self left some for Sunday, and it's like, he's just going to learn so much through the process. But the part I love as the adult is, again, there's no nagging all week, because there's that one touch point, and that's the first and last time. If I don't want to say anything about chores, that's the only time I have to talk to them.
I love that. I think that that's huge. I feel like that's something I tend to do a lot, is don't forget, you have to do this before you go anywhere this weekend or whatever, and it's always, I know, Mom, but maybe I just need to stop the reminders, and just let them, like you said, suffer the consequence of, you don't get to go where you wanted to go if you didn't get it done in time, and it's up to you to remember.
Yeah. And sometimes I'll say, if they say, oh, Mom, can I go play? And it's a Wednesday, I'll be like, absolutely. Remember, chores they have to be done by Sunday. And that just feels like light and easy and non-nagging.
Yeah. And you mentioned, I love the idea of them cooking at one night a week. That's incredible. What age did they start doing that? Like where they could be responsible for a whole meal on their own?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually a really good story. So my oldest two, Paul and Leah, boy and a girl, were 9 and 12. And I wanted to volunteer at high school youth group at our church. And my husband said, no way, because it started at 5:30 on Sunday evenings. He said, Katie, I know you. You are going to get the meal 75% done. You're going to be freaking out and stressing out, and you're going to like leave the house, and we're all going to be sitting there like holding your stress ball. He said, there's no way this is going to work. I was like, shoot. I was like, I really, really want to help out. So I said to Paul and Leah, I think you guys have the skills to do this. Would you be willing to, allow Mom to serve at church by serving the family and taking that Sunday meal? And so they said they would. And so what we did is we decided to just have homemade pizza every Sunday. That's like a pretty classic, like people do that, right? Tacos every Monday or whatever. So they learned the recipe. What I decided to do was kind of pass that on to them. I made the whole recipe and had them watch. And then right away, because you can never have too much pizza, right away, then they made the recipe and I stepped back and watched. And I think they did it one other time while I was home, but elsewhere in the house. And then it was go time. Then it was the beginning of the school year and I was starting to volunteer. So that was kind of awesome because I left. And so I couldn't micromanage. Yeah. I felt I had passed it really intentionally, taught them this skill, and then it was up to them. And by the end of that school year, they were masters. They had the recipe memorized. They knew at 4:17 they could walk into the kitchen, to have dinner ready by 5:30. And they knew they had like 11 minutes to play cards. They had a playlist. It was so sweet for like sibling bonding. My daughter's the more organized one, so she was 9. That's pretty young, but she's like the taskmaster, and then the 12-year-old, is able to do maybe the heavier tasks of like putting stuff into the oven. Yeah. So at 12, then officially is when we pass on a meal a week, but it's always going to be for that whole first year the same dish, so that they can practice the skills of organization, the kind of the skills in the kitchen, and not have to worry about learning a new recipe every week. Then the second year, we switch it up and they do the old favorite every other week. And the middle weeks, then they have to find a new recipe and figure it out. So it's a very gradual release of responsibility. It's worked really well for us so far.
I can also see that working really well for the parent, because just thinking about having my kids cook dinner in theory sounds great, but in practice, like, is it going to be even harder on me than just doing it myself,
Right.
So that sounds like a really great system where you can ease your way out of it, and they
Mhm.
can get more confident as they go. Well, you mentioned one other point without like kind of nitpicking on things. What kind of tips do you have when we do teach them? Obviously, like if they're baking or something, like you have to be very particular about,
Mhm.
you have to make sure your measurements are exactly right. Things like that. Thinking of my son, is a little bit more accepting whenever mom gives her opinion on things. Now, how well he cleans the bathroom is a different story. So what do you say to parents who are like, I'm trying to teach them how to do it and to do it right without it making him go back 3 different times to finish it, and by then he's so furious with me because he thinks I'm asking too much, which is, speaking from experience.
I know, I know. I mean, so cleaning and cooking, obviously a little bit different. Cooking, like
Yeah.
the end result is going to speak for itself, and so that's the checks and balances right there. When it comes to cleaning, we do, with that chore system, the weekly chores, we do check their chores that they've been done appropriately well. And our biggest problem right now is that one of the kids will do a chore on a Wednesday, and then they'll ask us to check it on a Friday, and we're like life has happened, dude. I don't know. I have
Yeah.
no idea if you cleaned this well on Wednesday. So that's like the current friction point. But yeah, when we check it, because that's built into the system, it's a little bit easier to say, oh man, like there's still yellow on the wall.
Yes.
When you clean the toilet, like I can see it, I do lower my standards a little bit from where I would clean for example, like my youngest is 11, and so I don't expect him to be as perfect or as detail oriented as I might be. Sometimes I'll go in and say, oh, I'm just going to do a couple finishing touches, right? I'm just going to
Yeah.
get this little bit, and as you get older you'll be able to get this even cleaner or whatever. But yeah, we do want to have those standards, ideally so that they're taking ownership, so that they're proud of their work and they're not rushing through. That's the thing. I'd love to say,
Yeah.
like, just let them do it. But then you'll definitely have kids who will push the boundaries and just be like, rush, 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 rush. Like, I did it.
Right.
They
Oh,
didn't really
absolutely.
they didn't really do it well. But at any time, I think a good rule of thumb for parents is anytime you can either ask a question instead of making a statement, or give your kid agency in the form of a choice, the better. And so that's kind of why, like in our system, they have choices. They don't have to do the same exact chores every week. They can choose whatever they want. They tend to, right now, my kids are mostly in ruts. They tend to grab the same chores every week, which is fine. They're just those are their favorites and they'll work to mastery. But if they're unhappy about a chore, I can always say, let's choose a different one. So
Yeah.
that's kind of nice. And they know that they have that agency. And then when it comes to checking the chores, if I'm smart, and I'm not always smart, but if I'm on my game, I try to ask a question, right? Like, do you see any dust left here on the coffee table or whatever? Or like, can you look at this area and what do you see there? And just help them kind of build that sense of checking their own work. And then
Yeah.
eventually, like my 2 older ones, I don't check their work anymore because we're to the point where I trust them to do it well. They're 18 and 21, they're basically adults. But that's been true for a number of years. And so the 14-year-old, like he's close. He's close
Yeah.
to not having the checks anymore, which is nice. And I think that's a goal for him to work toward and would sort of incentivize him to do a better job. So if you don't have to ask the parents for a check, that's like 5 more minutes back in your life.
Right. I love it. I wish that I had talked to you like 15 years ago. I feel like we have some of the some similar systems, but there's so much room for improvement. And my goodness, these are so practical. And like you said, they simple and straightforward. Everybody knows what to expect. They know what they need to get done, and giving them, like I said, the choices to be able to do it when they want to do it and what they're going to do. I, I think everybody accepts that a little bit better than being told, go do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. There's not zero complaining, but
Right.
it is a little better.
Well, they wouldn't be teenagers if they didn't complain sometimes, right?
Mhm.
Well, Katie, this was so interesting. We talk a lot about building confidence in our kids focused on opportunities for them to speak to other people and listening to them and all that. This is such a practical conversation and strategies that anybody could start implementing. This was so valuable to me. And you have tons of resources, including the camps and everything that you offer. But there are some resources parents could grab right now to learn more ways that they can do things like this at home, right?
Yes, absolutely. We created a special page at raisinghealthyfamilies.com/speak out for your podcast. And when parents go there, they can get 5 of our life skills workshops. So we talked about checking the oil. That's one of them, to learn how to check the fluids in your automobile. And there's a cooking, there's an entrepreneurship. So it's really a nice grab basket of other voices teaching your kids a skill, because sometimes that's so nice for parents to get a little break. They hear our voice all day long, all week long, and to have another adult say, hey, here's how you do this skill, or here's how you can make your first dollar. It's pretty powerful for the kids.
That's great. And are these like videos that they can watch, or are these live classes? How does that work?
No, they're video workshops, so you can use them at any point. Just at raisinghealthyfamilies.com/speak out, and they don't expire.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Katie. And if you're listening or watching, the links are wherever you're at on whatever page you're on. So you'll be able to find the links to go check that out. You can also, we'll link to Katie's socials so you can follow all the things they're doing on there. And again, these are things that we can start doing with our littlest kids. Don't wait until they're the teenagers to start like flipping the script and be like, okay, now we're going to start doing these things that I wasn't asking you to do for years. The sooner you start, the better. But we can still start anytime, right? Like, I mean, even if somebody's like, have a 15-year-old who's never done a chore in his life, we can still make that happen, right?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Today is always the best day to start, whether your child's 2, 12, or 20.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Katie. We appreciate your time and your insight and all these great strategies. Thanks for being here.
Oh, you're welcome, Elizabeth.
And thanks for listening.